All right, so today we are talking all about how I edit photos with my iPad Pro and iPhone. This is my mobile photo editing workflow. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Desmond. I make videos for creators that want to take better photos and shoot better videos. All right, if you're anything like me, especially when it comes to things like family photos and self-portraits, I've got hundreds, maybe thousands of photos that I haven't even edited yet. But sometimes I just need to move through them very quickly, get them up on social media, send them to grandparents and aunts and uncles and my wife. So I want to talk to you about how I mostly use my iPad Pro and my iPhone to edit all of my photos in the fastest way possible. All right, and one thing I will note about my mobile workflow is that it really is about speed and convenience. Now, I don't have paying clients or customers. I don't do photography for a living, so I don't have to get these pixel perfect photos out to any type of paying client. What's most important to me is usually cranking through hundreds of photos from a family vacation and getting those up on social media, sharing those with grandparents and my wife and relatives. So this faster mobile workflow is really helpful for me. So before we get started, there are a few things you're gonna need. The first most important thing is the software, and I use Lightroom Creative Cloud. And on my iPad Pro and my iPhone, it is Lightroom Mobile. The important piece about this is whether or not I'm editing on my desktop, my iPad, or my iPhone, all of those edits are synced in the cloud across all of my devices. So I can start an edit on my iPad, switch off to my phone, and then finish it off on my computer, or vice versa. That's the most important element of my mobile editing workflow. The second thing you're gonna need is the device, right? So you can either use an iPhone. I've got the iPhone 13 Pro Max. What I love about using this, and probably the 12 and the 11, is the color science on this is really accurate. You've got these beautiful screens, they're large, and they make the editing experience really fun and very fast. Another option would be an iPad. I use the iPad Pro 12.9, again, because of the beautiful screen, the color accuracy, and just how pleasant it is to edit with such a large device. It is incredibly powerful, and it makes the editing process, again, very smooth, very enjoyable. And sometimes I'll just sit in bed and just like pull up my iPad and start editing hundreds and hundreds of photos. One thing to call out, you don't really need an Apple Pencil, especially if you're using it with an iPad. I tend to do a lot of my editing with my fingers, but today I'm gonna use my Apple Pencil as an example, just because I don't wanna get this thing all smudgy and fingerprinty. And the third thing, and I know a lot of you are gonna start shaking your heads, is presets. So like I said, I edit for speed and convenience. I don't have paying clients. I don't use any type of proprietary coloring method. I use a preset to get my picture 80% of the way, and then I start to tweak it to my style and how I like the look of it. Photography is really relative, and your look is your style, but I always start with a preset because it just gets me there faster. I don't have to mess with the curves. I don't have to do a lot of the redundant things that I would normally do across every single photo anyways. So that is my recommendation for you. And one of the most important things you're gonna need for this editing workflow is a SD card reader with either USB-C compatibility or Lightning compatibility. I have both, but like I said, you honestly only need one, because once you've uploaded your photos to Lightroom Mobile and Creative Cloud, you can access those on either device. So sometimes I'll just plug it right into my iPhone, upload all the photos I want, and I can access them on my iPad, or I can upload things directly to my iPad and I can access it on my iPhone. All right, so let's get right into an edit. So here we go. We've got a photo of my son, Liam. So I chose this photo because I think it's lit pretty well. We are shooting in a tent. It's very bright outside, but I've got good consistent lighting across the entire shot. And what you'll notice in this shot too is it's underexposed a bit. I always tend to shoot underexposed, especially knowing my camera. This is the A7R4 that I shot it with, and I shot this with a 35mm f1.4 G Master. Now, the reason why I tend to underexpose, and it may be different for you, is I just understand the dynamic range of my photo. So I've edited enough photos coming off this camera to know that if I underexpose, I have a lot of ability to bring the shadows back. I still can pull the highlights down. So we're just gonna walk through how I would start editing this photo. All right, so let's get right into this edit. First, we're gonna start with presets. All right, so for some of y'all shaking your heads, I mean, you can start and do your curves yourself, but I tend to just pick a preset that I really like. I've downloaded a bunch from different creators that I really enjoy. Peter McKinnon, I've got a couple of his packs. I've also downloaded some things from Wild Presets. That's like a pretty cheap preset company. You get like 200 presets for 30 bucks. I would probably say that's not worth it. In the world of presets, sometimes it's just too many options. All right, so we're gonna go with a preset pack that I really like. It's a Peter McKinnon fall pack from 2018. Again, I think there's just something in here that gets my photo 80% of the way that I like it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pick this one, North. I tend to like my greens kind of more muted on the hue side, so I like the look of this so far. And as we go through it, I think there are a few things we're gonna change, right? So once I've applied my preset, I'm just gonna start adjusting some of the basic pieces. I think I wanna bring the exposure up a tiny bit, mess around with the shadows. Shadows look fine. I'm gonna bring my whites down, and I'm gonna keep my blacks where they are. There are a couple changes I'm gonna make, and then I'll come back to light afterwards, but obviously I think this is a little bit too warm. So I'm just gonna make this a little bit cooler. And if you've seen my photos before, I actually like to add a lot more magenta. I like the magenta tone. And this is what I was saying before, right? Once you start getting into the edit of your photos, it's really all about personal style. This is a photo for me and my family. I edit it however I want. I don't need a light and airy look to meet any client needs. I just like to kind of eye the style and the feeling I want to get out of this. So like I said, right, I bring some of the blues back in, make it a little bit cooler. I like the magentas. What I like about the Peter McKinnon pack is it already drops my saturation to -38. I don't like my photos oversaturated. I kind of like that old, like low contrast look. And effects, I'm a big fan of adding a vignette into my photos. Not for everyone, but again, this is a photo for myself. So now that I've added the vignette, you can see that the photo is a little darker overall. So this is where I'll come back to the light and I'll bring the exposure back up. Again, another thing, it's really all about preference, but you know, you're shooting kids. I think for like shots when it comes to children, maybe a little bit brighter. You get some like, you know, light, beautiful, glowy cheeks and whatnot. This is a cute little boy. So I'm just gonna go ahead and mess around with the highlights. I like this overall. All right, and the last piece is just like messing with your crop a bit. I would say those fences are not a good gauge of what is straight. They are a little crooked when the photo was taken anyway. So I think you kind of just eye this one. Like I said, I'm going for speed. I don't want to spend too much time on this piece. And I'd say this is probably in a pretty good spot. I'll probably continue to tweak, and I think that's ultimately what it comes down to as well, right? I'll do one pass of my photos super quickly, and then once I'm done batch editing everything, I will come back to my favorites and I'll start to kind of tweak them little by little every now and then until I think they're ready to share or ready to post. All right, so I feel pretty good about this. Let's go for another photo here. So here is more of like a classic product photo. This is something that I was doing for my channel, doing for a brand sponsorship with Alpaca. And you can see here the photo is pretty dark. Again, underexposed on purpose, just because I understand the dynamic range of my camera. Let's go ahead and apply the same preset so we're just like consistent across the board. That preset brings the image even darker, but it has adjusted some color that I really like about it. So what I'm gonna do first is let's just bring the exposure up so we can see what we're working with here. So I think this exposure is good. What I really want to focus on here is obviously the bag itself. So the bag looks well exposed. I can see some really good texture in the materials, and let's start to work from here, right? I want to bring some of these shadows down because I like my product photography just to look a little bit darker. I'm big on these monochromatic color schemes. I like the blacks to look really black, and I like this texture to look really rich. So we'll bring those shadows down, and I'm gonna bring some of these blacks down. Again, really it's just about personal style, but in my Instagram feed, I like these photos to look really dark and kind of like badass, I guess, and darker blacks tend to do that. All right, so I'm gonna bring the magenta up a tiny bit, and then you know what? I'm gonna bring up the warmth of this a little bit as well. So now you've got a little bit of orange toning in this case, so that is actually not the actual color of the case, so I think we'll cool it down a tiny bit. Like I said, I love to add a little bit of vignetting, especially with product photos. I tend to go a little darker on vignetting because I want to focus you really on the product I'm taking a photo of. All right, and again, after adding the vignette, everything gets a little bit dark, so we're just gonna boost it a tiny bit, and let's play with the contrast. I feel okay with this, and I might drop the saturation just a tiny bit. Okay, I think for the most part, this looks pretty good. Obviously, I would tweak this a lot more, but I think there are a few things that I'm gonna do with this photo. First, let's mess with the geometry because I think we've got some lines here that could use improving. So I'm gonna do that a little bit. Okay, just gonna mess with the geometry a bit just because I wanna center this stuff. I should have done it when I was taking the photo, but really it's fine. That's why we have editing software. And that's why we have high megapixel cameras if you need to do hyper zooms. What I wanna do here is let's bring this crop in. I wanna get some of this aligned right. And for the most part, I feel pretty good about this photo. And the best thing, again, about these mobile workflows is that I can just export this directly to my camera roll and then share it on Instagram, on Facebook, airdrop it to other people's devices. I message it out to family and friends and other people that I wanna share these photos with. And that's the best thing about using Lightroom Creative Cloud and Lightroom Mobile is that now that I finished the edit here on my iPad, it is here on my iPhone. So I can just crack open Lightroom and again, take a look. We've got both of the photos that we edited, right? Here's the product shot. Here's the shot of Liam. And then if you go back, I also have access to every single thing that I've ever shot before, whether or not I've edited on an iPhone or an iPad. So if you take this shot here, we can easily just export it to my camera roll. I'm gonna go ahead and open Instagram, and from Instagram, the photo is already there and ready to be posted, right? I think that's something that I really love. Also, follow me on Instagram, quick plug, if you guys wanna just stay on top of some of the photos that I'm regularly taking. All right, so hopefully y'all found this mobile editing workflow helpful. I'm gonna be shooting a lot more how-to videos in 2022, but like I was saying before, right, this workflow may not work for everyone, especially some of you that are taking client work, that are doing this professionally or getting paid to deliver some final product to a customer, because they're gonna expect a higher level of refinement. They're going to expect cleaner skin. They're gonna expect a lot more, especially when there's a price tag involved in it. But for me, I'm shooting hundreds and hundreds of photos on a quick family trip. Sometimes I just gotta get through a lot of them really quickly. I'm shooting holiday photos at home. I'm going to birthday parties. A lot of the stuff is just for me and my family. So it is all about speed and convenience. And I like it to be enjoyable. I like to lay on my couch, crack open Lightroom and just edit. All right, y'all, if you enjoyed this content, hit that like button and definitely subscribe for more stuff just like this. I will catch y'all in the next one.